Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for checking out this video. So today I'm going to show you guys how to install and configure TRUENAS on any old PC or any hardware that you may have lying around. Now, TRUENAS is compatible with a lot of different hardware from a lot of different manufacturers. So any computer that you have around, there's a high tendency that TRUENAS is definitely going to run on it. Now, TRUENAS or TRUENAS Core is an incredibly reliant NAS software that is used by both businesses and hobbyists to solve and manage their storage problems. Now, if you wanted to go online and try to buy an actual NAS, an already made solution, then you're looking at spending probably between $400 to $700 to get a decent NAS. And this is something that actually depends on the capacity, so the amount of RAM, processor, and storage that you're gonna get, which could definitely run the price really up. But when you build your own system, or when you decide to build your own solution, you have a lot of flexibility because you can start small, and as your storage needs grows, you can definitely scale up, right? And now I know that you're gonna have probably some limitations as to how many drives you can run, but depending on how much storage each drive is gonna be capable of, you can pretty much have a very high storage capacity without having a lot of different drives, right? Because say, for example, if you were to get let's say 5 terabytes or 10 terabytes drives and you pair them up together, I feel like that will give you a huge amount of storage which you can use for a certain amount of time depending on your storage needs. Maybe asking yourself, why do I really need to build my own NAS system? Well, there's a lot of different advantages to this, but I'm going to focus the section just on the advantages to you as a normal user. Now, TRUENAS itself, or TRUENAS Core, has a lot of different advantages and benefits when used as a storage solution. But as a hobbyist, TRUENAS is an amazing product. You have a lot of flexibility, and again, it's completely free, so you're not going to be spending any money to get the actual software. And you have that flexibility to scale up as you want, depending on how you want to deploy your stuff without spending any more, without spending extra on the actual software. Another reason is that TRUENAS is very reliable, and it's very good at managing storage. Now, TRUENAS comes with a lot of advanced data protection features that kind of guarantees your data and guarantees the integrity of your data. Now, for this procedure, we're going to need two things. You're going to need a flash drive, minimum capacity of 4 gigabytes, and we're going to need rufus. Rufus is an application that will help us to flash the ISO image of TRUENAS into our flash drive. Now, to download TRUENAS, navigate to TRUENAS.com, go to software, click on TRUENAS Core, and you're going to see the minimum requirements right there. Now, these minimum requirements are mostly for businesses, but if you're going to be using this in your home lab, then you don't really need to. You don't really need 16 gigabytes of RAM unless you're going to be doing some crazy stuff with it. Now scroll to the bottom and click on No Thank You. Then click on Download Stable TRUENAS Core. Now to download Rufus, go to rufus.ie, scroll down and download the latest version. And once your downloads are complete and you have everything on your computer system, go ahead and attach your flash or your flash drive to the system, and then open Rufus. Now, when you open Rufus, check up top and make sure that Rufus is able to identify your flash drive. It's able to read it. And once you confirm this, click on Select, and then navigate to the directory that you downloaded TRUENAS, the TRUENAS ISO image, and then just load that into Rufus, and then click on Start. Now, Rufus will probably take 5 to 10 minutes to completely prepare your drive to become a bootable flash drive. So I'll just give it a little bit of time. Now once that process is complete, we're going to move on to start our server and then do the installation. Now this is the machine that I am going to be installing TrueNAS on it. It's a very simple PC. It's an HP. It has four cores processor and 8 GB of RAM. Alright, so now when you boot your system or the specific hardware that you want to install TrueNAS on it, I want you to interrupt the boot process by pressing either F12. Now most manufacturers will use F12, but others probably might use F9 or F10. So go ahead and choose one, so install. You're gonna have to select the drive that you want to install TrueNAS on it. Now mind you, the drive that you install TrueNAS on it, you're not gonna be able to use it to store anything else. You can also provide your root password and also select the swap space. I always prefer to select the swap space because swap will be used by the operating system if you are having memory problems to actually support your RAM. Now the TrueNAS installation is going to be very fast. Well, depending on the system you're going to be building this on, it could take a few minutes, but in my case it didn't really take a long time. But immediately after the installation, I want you to reboot. If your computer was connected to the internet, it is going to pick up an IP address from your DHCP server. Now if it wasn't, then you're going to have to configure that statically. Now this IP address is dynamic, so so it's going to change as time goes on, right? So what you want to do is you want to configure a static IP address. Now if you're wondering how you're going to get a static IP address in your environment, just go ahead and open your command prompt, and I want you to ping or try to run the command ping against the IP address that you're going to be using. All right, so now that our system is fully booted or rebooted, we're going to go ahead to configure static IP address, so that way the IP address will never change. Once our IP address has been configured, we can test it by pinging Google, and once we get a positive ping, it means our system is able to communicate on our network. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is open a browser and type in the IP address of the NAS server that you had configured earlier. Alright, so now that we are connected to our TrueNAS web console, so creating user groups is very easy. You just provide the group name, and I will always select permit sudo because I want any member that I add to this group to be able to or to have administrator rights. Now for user accounts, there's a lot of information you can provide, but then bare minimum are the ones that you see me putting on here. You can also select, which file system you want that user to have access to. You intend to make this account a Microsoft compatible account, then go ahead and check this little checkbox right here. If you wanted to add more users to the group, then you can go expand the group and click on members, and then you're going to see a list of all the members in that system, and then you can click on the one that you want to move over and just click on this button right here, and it will navigate or push. Alright, so next we're going to move to email configuration. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and configure Gmail so we can send notifications from the TrueNAS system to our emails in case of a problem. So after connecting our Gmail account, you can see we have a checkbox that says OAuth credentials have been applied. Now this is a confirmation that our TrueNAS is now connected to our Gmail account. All right, so next thing we want to do is to configure an alert service, so that way, we can be able to send alerts to our email. So we can configure a bunch of different alerting services that can work with our TrueNAS. Example could be Slack, PagerDuty, or whatever else that you have in your environment. All right, so after sending our test email, we can log into our Gmail account and you can see that we got our test email. Now we can go ahead and configure SSH connections and SSH keys as well, but I'm not really going to be doing any of those in this video because I'm not really going to be using SSH to connect to the TrueNAS system. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is configure our multi-factor authentication. So if this system is going to be used by a lot of different people, or you just want to lock down the security of the TrueNAS system, so that way, any unauthorized person cannot have access to it, then you need to configure multi-factor authentication. Alright, so this is our network information. We can go ahead and configure our hostname. Now, if you have if you have a separate domain, then you can definitely add it here as well, and you can do additional configurations in here. But I'm just gonna leave it simple, and I'm just gonna change the host name. All right. So the next thing, which is very, very important part of configuring your TrueNAS system, is actually setting up pools. Because if you don't have a pool, then you can't really build or deploy plugins or use any jails or anything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and create different pools for my environment. These are the drives that I have on this specific setup. I have two 4 terabyte drives and one 3 terabyte drive. So to create pools, all you need to do is provide a name and then select the drives that you want to add to that pool. Now, when you're adding multiple drives to a pool, you need to make sure that those drives have the same capacity. So if you were to combine drives that are not equal, so for example, if I add a third drive to it, which is a 2 terabyte drive, you can see the system is literally telling us that we can't really do this. And the reason for this is because, so when you have multiple drives that are not of the same capacity in the same pool, what happens is the system is going to downgrade or reduce the storage capacity of the other drives to the lowest capacity. So for example, in this my setup right here, the smallest drive is the 3 terabyte drive. So anything above 2.73 terabyte will be ignored. So the system, the entire system is going to consider these 3 drives to have 2.73 terabytes of storage each, rather than the actual capacities. So in that kind of setup, we're actually losing storage rather than combining them and getting some good results from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the 2 drives. I'm going to configure mirroring on the 2 4 terabyte drives, and then I'm going to set the 2 terabyte or the 3 terabyte in a separate pool, which I'm going to get more drives, which I'm going to add to that pool as well. Now, it's not always advisable to have one drive in a pool, because if that drive goes down, then you're going to lose all the data that was in that drive. Now, if we were to stripe the 2 drives, then we're definitely going to have a problem, because if one of the drives go down, then we're going to lose all the data, because that could lead to data corruption, and that's something you don't really want, because the main reason why you're trying to get a NAS is because you want to have persistent storage, something that can hold your data and you're not going to lose them for any reason. So after creating our pools, we're going to need to create datasets. Now, datasets are like individual directories that are going to be inside of our storage pools, and we can use them to store different kinds of data to it. After creating the datasets, I'm going to show you guys how to configure or how to set up permissions on it. So who has access to those datasets and what kind of permission they have. Now, in my environment, I have a lot of devices. I have servers, I have my phone, my laptops, and I have a tablet, and I'm going to be combining everything together to make sure that they all back up their data into the TrueNAS system. So I'm going to be setting, that's why I'm setting up separate data sets for each of those devices, because I'm going to try to separate them in terms of what I'm going to be storing. Alright, so now that we have our data sets, we're going to go ahead and start configuring our permissions on them. Now I'm going to be using the user account that we created earlier and the group as well. And I'm going to make it recursive so that way it applies to any directories or data sets that are found below that level. And I'm going to do the same for all the other main data sets. Now that our pools have been created, now if you wanted to add the TrueNAS system to your Active Directory environment, you can go ahead and do that under Directory Services. But I'm now going to move on to setting up services. Now the two main services I'm going to be setting up is NFS, which I'm going to connect to my Proxmox environment, and then I'm going to be creating an SMB share to also connect to my Windows PC. Now, when setting up an NFS share, you're going to have two ways of specifying who has access to that specific share. Now, you can either specify an entire subnet, or you can specify specific IP addresses. Now, so I actually made a mistake and I forgot to specify the subnet that will have access to this, and that's why I got that error message. And so now that we have that set up, let's try it again. Now it works. Perfect. Alright, so for SMB share, you just need to select the specific mount or the specific data set that you want to use. I'm going to be using the default parameters, but if you want it, you could, make some extra configurations for it. You're going to need to either specify custom access control list policy for this, or you can just use open as, or you can just go ahead and use open. Alright, so now that we have configured our SMB share, you can open your File Explorer, type in your IP address to the NAS system, and we should be able to access that. Now what I want to do is I want to connect the share as a network drive, so that way I will have it present at all times and I can just send data to it, maybe from my phone or things like that. Alright, so after we are able to load that, just provide a name for it and then click on finish, and then we should have that in our system as another storage location. Alright guys, so now that we've configured our sharing options, I'm going to be making separate videos for plugins. I'm going to also make separate videos on how to use like a bunch of these other services in TrueNAS. Plugins will come with a separate video with a lot more information. I'm going to show you guys how to do a Nextcloud, a Plex server. We're also going to be doing a VPN on this as well. So it's a ton of great content that's coming up. So do consider subscribing as well. I'm also going to make a separate video for jails because I feel like they are topics that really need their own separate video, so that way I can go in depth into a lot of these features. Same with virtual machines. I think I'm going to combine the jails and the virtual machines together in one video. Now you can look at the performance of your system by going to reporting, but I'm going to be ending this video here, guys. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.